why don't we talk about Tennessee?
Okay.
Let's talk about the Vols.
Can't wait.
This is a weird setup for the Vols.
Yeah.
So they're doing construction on Neyland Stadium right now.
Okay.
Doing construction. And because of that, they move the whole spring ordeal, whatever it is we're calling this, over to the practice facility. And it was open to the public, but it didn't quite have the same luster.
Of course.
The media was there, reported on it, what have you, but there were no official stats. I found some bootleg stats from the guys over at
Great.
RockyTopInsider.com. We'll give them
Love
a
it.
shout out. All right, so I found some general stats. It was some dude just doing his best to keep track of it. Hendon Hooker was 8 for 8, and he had a touchdown, so that's good. He's clearly going to be the focal point of this offense. But the big story going into this game is that the Vols are without a lot of guys. I mean, a lot of guys. You know the names like Jabari Small, Cedric Tillman, and Cooper Mays. Those guys, real contributors to this team who weren't playing in this game. But there were a multitude of others, especially guys from the secondary, other guys who are recovering from injury, trying to get to 100% by fall. Nobody wants to risk it with those guys, right?
Not in
What's
spring.
the point?
Yep.
What's the point? So this was clearly a skeleton crew to some extent for the Vols. Because so many guys were out, it's just hard to say anything for sure with what we saw. I can tell you the line had a rough day.
That's everybody.
Nobody liked the offensive line, but literally nobody. None of these teams that we've talked about for the last 3 weeks has liked what they saw from their offensive line. None of them. They all hated it. So how much can we read into that? 0. For those of you watching the video, I've got a goose egg here that I'm holding up to the camera.
Yep.
So the defense had a ton of sacks, a ton of pressures. We don't know if it's because they're mobile, agile, hostile, or because the line just was depleted.
Right.
I don't know. I can tell you, in that same vein, Tennessee allowed a lot of sacks last year.
They did.
They allowed a lot of sacks last year.
Sack rate 121st nationally.
That's not good.
No.
And so if you're a Vols fan, if you read the reports that the line looked bad, there were a lot of sacks and pressures in this game, you don't come away feeling great about that. I just don't know if we can base anything on it. It's a spring game. There are a lot of guys out.
Right.
I don't know what to make of that. You can draw a straight line from the bad line play to 2 other things that we saw in this game that I think are aberrations.
Okay.
If you follow my train of thought, I'm saying that I think the blurry part's sort of in focus, but I'm not sure. I'm getting lost in the metaphor of it all. But 2 things that I found here. In 20 drives, Tennessee scored just 3 touchdowns. They went 3 and out 9 times,
right,
which isn't great. And they had 3 turnovers, which also isn't good. Those 3 turnovers led to back-to-back-to-back defensive scores, for whatever that's worth. I believe both those to be an aberration.
Okay.
This is not really a problem for Tennessee last year on either front. I think they're fine. I just think that for sure is in focus. That is in due part to guys being out. But yeah, there were a lot of rough spots out there. And it's got to be in large part because of the manpower. Alontae Taylor also got drafted in the 2nd round. The cornerback. And so with so many guys at the secondary out, it was also kind of impossible to figure out what the defensive backfield is going to look like.
Right.
That's still blurry. I know that's an area of concern. They've talked about that as well, what they're going to do defensively in the backfield, stopping the pass. This was a better than expected defense a year ago.
Yeah, it was fine. Yeah.
It was fine. But that's an area where they got to improve, and especially now that they lose some key contributors.
Yeah, against the pass is the big question. On passing downs, it was where they folded a little bit too much. But it's here too. It's Tim Banks, right, who was at Penn State forever for an extended period of time running the defense. So, they know the problems. He's a good coach, and I expect them to improve from below average to decent against the pass because I really do think, and it has nothing to do with the offensive line. I think the pass rush is going to improve, and so that just alone should be enough to get them to a new place against the pass.
I think Tennessee's in a good place.
Yeah.
I really do. I know this team is not without questions. I hope we highlighted a couple of them here. My larger point is that you can't take anything away from the spring game.
No.
You can't take anything away from the spring game.
How long has Hendon Hooker been a college football player? I'm pretty sure Mark Helfrich recruited Hendon Hooker to Oregon. That's not a joke. I'm pretty sure it's been that long.